Welcome back to another episode of How to Become an Obstacle Buster. I'm your host, Warren Wandling, the show that's dedicated to bringing leaders and entrepreneurs strategies, tips, and resources to overcome their obstacles, to build resilience, and achieve success. Hey, if this is your first time listening or you've been part of our community for a while, thank you for tuning in today. Before I introduce you to my guest today, I want to make sure that you're aware of a new resource to help you to be resilient. It's our private Facebook community called Leadership with Purpose. So you can either search in groups in Facebook and search Leadership with Purpose. And I'll also make sure that link is in the show notes as well. In our community, I share strategies, tips, and resources so you can step into less stress, greater profit, and experience the work you love. It's also a great place to connect with other like-minded leaders. So I look forward to seeing you in our community. Our sponsor for the show today is Audible. If you love listening to podcasts, I know you're going to love Audible like I do. It's a great way to be able to listen to books that you want to read this year. So if you're not already subscribed to Audible, let me get you a free book and a free 30-day trial. The book that I recommend is The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. By simply visiting warrenwandling.com/audible, you can grab your free book and your free 30-day trial to Audible. Again, that's warrenwandling.com/audible. WARRENWANDLING.com/AUDIBLE. I have a great guest with me today, Lee Wandling. Lee is an entrepreneur, president of Image Seller, and my older brother. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to introducing you to Lee today. He shares some great insight of overcoming obstacles and his personal story of how he got started as an entrepreneur. Hey, welcome to the show, Lee.
Hey, Warren, thanks for having me on this afternoon. I'm really looking forward to talking to you and spending some time.
Yeah, it's really looking forward to the conversation as well. For our listeners, for those that don't know, Lee is my older brother, so really looking forward to this conversation. And as you might know, Lee, on How to Become an Obstacle Buster podcast, we provide strategies, tips, and resources to help leaders and entrepreneurs to overcome their obstacles, build resilience, and achieve success. So to start that conversation today, as an entrepreneur and the president of Image Seller, tell us about your business.
Well, that's a great intro, Warren. Obstacles are something that we deal with all the time. And so in everyone's business, not just our business, right? So our business is based on merchandise and managing merchandise programs for companies around the globe. And we help those companies manage not only inventory, but the communication, ordering platforms. And of course, right now, one of the most interesting topics is fulfillment, distribution, shipping, and getting items there on time, cost effectively.
Well, that's awesome. So I know you have a great entrepreneurial story. Some might even say inspiring story. So what does a car trunk, waddles, and a Westport warehouse have in common?
That's a really good question. So my entrepreneurial story starts out dark. Don't worry, it doesn't end that way.
That's encouraging for some listeners, I'm sure.
So don't tune out yet. I started off being an entrepreneur really because I had to. So I was in a bicycle car accident while I was in college, and I was on the bicycle end of it. And so what it really forced me to do is I had a period about 4 years or so where I had surgeries constantly. And so I wasn't really able to dig in and get a full-time job. And so I really had to be resourceful for myself, not only for my economic well-being, but for my mental well-being, because I had plenty of time to sit around and think. So we started off making waddles, which is a play on our last name, Wandling. Mm-hmm. And we made Hawaiian shorts, board shorts, if you will, back in the early 80s. So normally you'd think of something like this coming out of California, the coastal towns, someplace where there was ocean. There was no ocean. We had wheat fields in Kansas. Nonetheless, that was our first obstacle that we had to overcome is how do you make surf shorts from Kansas cool? So what we did is out of necessity, we started with a limited inventory because I had limited capital to spend on fabric and resources. And it was really born out of the trunk of my car. So we put the inventory in the car. I'd take it to one of the most popular shopping districts in Kansas City, the Plaza. I'd open my car trunk, and after a few weeks of doing this, I kind of drew a loyal following. So I'd show up every day at the same time, about 6 o'clock after the regular retail stores open the trunk of my car and sell as many shorts as I could before the very understanding Plaza Patrol or police would kind of shoo me away. It was a much more forgiving time, and they just asked me to leave, that I wasn't welcome to open up shop in the middle of the street there.
Yeah, that's an awesome story, Lee. Certainly in reference to just figuring out that transition because of the accident, just figuring out the next step to be able to overcome that obstacle, certainly with making waddles cool in the middle of Kansas.
Right, Warren. And as that particular business grew, fortunately, so did our distribution channel. So after about a month or so of getting shooed away, the sportswear buyer for the department store that I was in front of came out and said, you know what, why don't we make a deal? You stop selling in front of my store and I'll buy your merchandise and put it in the store. So a following month or two later, we had a display in every window across the front of the store, which as a budding entrepreneur, to see something go from the trunk of my car to having a display in one of the most prominent department stores in Kansas City was really encouraging. Our next step from there, after we kind of enjoyed that excitement and that little bit of success for a while, we opened up a really small retail space in Kansas City that would allow us to host events, store some inventory, just create some general excitement and energy around the brand that we were building back then.
Wow, that's awesome. So what does Westport Warehouse have to do with waddles in your car trunk then?
Oh, Warren, that's probably a better story for you to tell than me, but I'll give it a shot. And this is the part where older brother probably comes into play for everybody out there that has one of those. Warren was an awesome employee for us. He was great. He was thoughtful and he was energetic, and he too was able to bust through some obstacles. And we rented a warehouse in Westport, which was not too far from our store. And at that time, we had a different product that we were selling in addition to. It's called the Executive Briefcase. And it was a pair of boxer shorts printed with the daily stock quotations from the Wall Street Journal. It was packed in a black cardboard attaché, and it came with 1 share of uncommon stock. Really, really a fun product to sell. And we did really well with it at major retailers around the country. And Warren was in charge of our distribution. And, we were on a shoestring budget. And so we had a warehouse that had, to save money. We don't think we turned down the water, did we, Warren?
No, I don't think the water was running. No.
No. And whether we had electricity or not, that was probably questionable. But the one thing I know we didn't have was heat. So poor Warren had come in there and try to go to work and pack up the boxers and ship them out of the warehouse with cold hands, and probably having to use the restroom down the street at the donut shop as well too. So, but thankfully he stuck in there and we got our product shipped out the door.
Yeah, that's a great story. Yeah, exactly. Those are just obstacles that you just have to go through. If you're an entrepreneur, you just have to be willing to push through.
I think so, Warren. And I think what goes along with that is you need good supportive people around you as well, right? So that the props go back to you for being supportive and helping those visions come through. Entrepreneurs definitely have to push through obstacles. It's a daily challenge, but having a supportive friends that also keep you going and also push you, in this case, family, was really, really important for me to continue my journey.
Yeah, that's exciting. There's a lot more story with that, but Let's focus on, like in today's environment, Lee, since now that we're all working at home and there's a lot of creative ideas to help keep teams engaged, like there's the Zoom happy hour, or if you've heard of the game Kahoot, what are some unique activities that you're doing with your teams?
Wow, that's really makes me think about what we are doing. We do a weekly happy hour. We've been doing that almost since the first week of working from home with COVID, and it's been really successful. Everybody shares kind of where they are and what they've been doing. We have a game that we're playing now. We're playing bingo, which is kind of really what prompted me to do the podcast with you, Warren, is that one of the squares they have to check off is listening to Lee's latest podcast. So this will play right into that. And so the what you want to mention if you're listening to the podcast is that this is all about Emmy. So, and actually Emmy is actually a fictitious character we made up as a play off of Image Seller. And Emmy is the one that does all our supportive things for either people in the community or internally here at Image Seller to help them with a different aspect, which is being philanthropic. So it's all about giving away. It's all about returning back to the community. So I think that those pieces have been important. And then some of our small teams will get together in a park and socially distance, of course, but they will share their work products and have some different interactions that you normally get to have in person, which right now we're also used to doing everything on the screen. I think that really gives them connectivity back to the company.
Well, that's really great. There's some great ideas, Lee, in reference to like building engagement and just keeping your teams active and staying, because that probably helps in reference to the work teams that they also work in to be able to do other things outside of work.
Yeah, I think so too, Warren. I think that, part of the responsibility of being an entrepreneur or owning a company is also being able to lead people and show people that there is a philanthropic side to this and a supportive side as well. And it becomes, and you see this a lot with larger companies, but us as a smaller company with about 30 employees, we have a number of different charities that we support throughout the year, either through donations or through financial contributions.
So we'll have to keep, that's awesome, Lee. So within the secret word, to make sure that they listen to the podcast, that it's Emmy if they pick up that secret word.
Right.
So what is the greatest obstacle your clients encounter?
Well, I think today, the greatest obstacle everybody's encountering, right, is the unknown. So we all entered in this COVID time period hoping that it was going to be relatively short. And I think as we live through it and we're seeing now that we don't know what that time period is going to be. And so the unknown of what our new reality is going to be, what our new work reality is going to be, and definitely what our new financial reality is going to be. So being flexible, of course, the term pivot is used quite often, are the keys to being successful in this. And there are definitely some companies that thrive during this time period. And I think those are the ones to look to for some motivation and almost you take a look at those as it's a good track record for success, and you'll be able to pick up some things that they're doing or looking at that you might be able to do as well too if you're owning and running a company.
So what was a key strategy that contributed to your success building your business?
I think I would have to say, and we still talk about this today, is we really look for problems, issues, challenges that other companies have. So if it's a challenge or an issue that they're having, whether it's in our business, if it's design or it's a merchandise program, it's our inventory and fulfillment, then we're looking at how we can solve that problem. And we primarily try to solve it, one, with great customer service. It's super important to us because when we started, the technology integrations weren't as robust as they were today. And so there was a much more of a human component to it. And we've carried that customer service component forward, which sometimes in today's world with chat bots and emails and texting, sometimes that gets lost a little bit. So while you've got to be creative and you have to follow your intuition, I think one of the basics of business is providing great customer service.
So in an article by Sarah W. Fraser, her article is from coloradobusiness.com. Here's why we should celebrate small business success. You're quoted in saying, the business world is very secular. Based on that concept, what advice would you share about pivoting? There's that word again, pivoting in this season.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And there's a couple of different components in there. So, in the fact that business is kind of follows a circle, there isn't an end, right? So it continues to move forward. And it all has to do, I think, with the people that you associating yourself with positive people, associating yourself with people that have positive ideas and that support you. If they are employees or associates, they're people that are willing to change and move with you, and as well as the business moves too. And as we look at the word pivot, means a different thing to me today than it did in March when all this began. March and April, we were talking about, well, how are we going to pivot to, one, be successful, and sometimes two, just if some people are looking to pivot to stay in business. And the pivots you've seen them come from all different angles and different businesses. Some people are developing a different product line. Some people are developing different ways that they can distribute the items that they're producing and services that they're producing. But I think more than anything, as we look to this being maybe a little bit longer term, the virus being more of a longer term issue that we're all going to have to overcome, that pivot is an everyday. So that pivot becomes from your attitude, from your positive take on what you're doing, your business and your people. I think that pivot is also looking for ways that you are super strong in your business, and it might not even be a core competency, but you discover it to be a core competency, and being able to pivot and use those extensions of your business to be successful.
Yeah, Lee, I think that it's spot on in reference to that pivot. I think a lot of people were in the beginning, were making that change, that first initial pivot, and thinking that would be like we could just stay focused on that new change. But I think it is a pivot every day that certainly those companies that are going to continue moving forward, they have to ask themselves that question, how can you pivot today to stay focused? So that's a real great point. So I believe that success leaves clues, and one of those clues are the books or authors, or I love Audible, so books that you listen to. What are some authors that influenced you in your business?
Oh, that's a really strong question, Warren. And I wish I had a better answer for you, but I'm gonna be honest in this case. I am not a book reader, but I am a parts of a book reader. So Jim Collins, kind of the Good to Great, taking cues from that. One of my, and while that's made for larger enterprise businesses, there's still some great pieces in there that can be adapted to our current business. And then one of my favorite books that I've read and that I enjoy and I've learned quite a bit from is actually Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. And while it does not have a title that you would look to use in your business setting, what it does talk about is it talks about quality, the interpretation of quality, and how quality really means things to different people. So we all like to think of ourselves as quality people. We like to think of ourselves as people that are delivering a quality product. But what we also learned from reading the book, that quality is really in the eyes of the beholder. So quality to you is going to be completely different than quality to me and everyone else. So that I think it brings a reality to your messaging and how your messaging needs to be specific.
Yeah, those are great. Both of those books are awesome.
Yeah.
Great recommendations for our listeners. Are you working on any special projects?
Today, I would say that this is a special project. Yeah. I think in the mode that we are right now, all the projects really become special as we identify and review our processes, as we identify and look at our opportunities. I think that they all become they all become special projects today. Where we choose to spend our money and our time, I think, is more highlighted in this current business climate than it normally would be. We recently, in the last year, opened a retail store in Nashville, Tennessee, which, as you can imagine, is a little bit challenging. But we're managing to be able to still remain open with some change in hours, and of course, taking extraordinary safety precautions to keep everybody safe.
Sure. So is it a rumor that you might be launching a podcast?
Boy, I don't know. Kind of depends how this one goes, Warren. You're the pro. I'm just filling in here, but I really have toyed with the idea of maybe having a podcast called "Out of the Trunk of My Car,"
Wow.
and it's refers to how I started selling out of the trunk of my car, but it could be you started out of your garage, or you started out of your basement, or you just started your business out of a hole in the wall someplace and have been able to, sustain it. Growth is one thing, but being able to sustain the business and stay open and for a number of years, I think really speaks to the people that are behind it, whether they be the entrepreneurs and owners, or whether they just be whether they are part of the management team and the employees as well.
Yeah, and that's congratulations to you, Lee, because you've been in business for quite some time in reference to from the start of the trunk of your car to now.
Yeah, well, thanks for not wanting to date me, but I've been or show everybody my age, right? So I've been doing this currently at Image Seller for 28 years. And prior to that, I had a couple of other ventures that I did that probably going back another, I'd say 10 years past that. So it's been quite a while that I've been kind of going down this road.
Yes. Yeah, so if our listeners wanted to connect with you, what's the best way for them to be able to reach out?
Probably the best way is going to be able to reach out just straight to my email, which is lee.wandling@imageseller.com.
Okay. Excellent. Well, I'll make sure that is in the show notes for our listeners to be able to reach out to you. Well, thank you again, Lee, for being on the show and sharing your tips, resources, helping our listeners to break through their obstacles to achieve success.
Thanks, Warren. And thank you for not telling any embarrassing stories about my youth. I appreciate that.
Yeah, exactly. And if we did, maybe could have edited those out. Or
Thanks.
Yeah. Well, until next time, this is your host, Warren Wandling, saying, be resilient.